Hi there, welcome to the Dietary Restriction Kitchen. I'm Nat Ryan. Today in the kitchen, I'm going to show you how to make a dairy-free, creamy butternut squash soup. So we're going to start with a fresh butternut squash. As you can see, it has been washed, but it hasn't been cut. Nothing's been done with it yet. But we're going to cut it, roast it, and then we're going to make a delicious soup out of it. And it's going to be 100% dairy-free and absolutely delicious. So before we get started though, I'd like to ask you to do something for me. Can you please do me a favor? Like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. It's much appreciated. So the first thing we're going to do is we've washed the butternut squash. Now we need to cut it. So what I like, nice sharp knife, okay? And because squashes are very tough on the outside, and we're going to cut off the top of it here. Oh. So see how tough that is. And like what I like to do is then come along and cut the bottom off as well. Okay, and this is where you got your seeds in this part, but just a second. We'll put those two pieces aside, set them aside. We don't need them. And then what I like to do is take it right from the top, and you got to be really, really careful of this. And we're going to go straight down. Okay, oh, that is tough. Okay, so straight down like that. Now this is weird because look, that's where the seeds are, is here. All the rest of it has no seeds. It's just down here at the bottom. The part that's sort of more bulby at the bottom, that's where your seeds are. But all of this too is butternut squash that you can use. So what we're going to do now is we're going to scoop out the seeds out of the bottom parts here. So let me just do one at a time. I take just a regular tablespoon, you know, nothing like, make sure it's a sturdy one because this can be a little bit challenging. It's going to make you work a little bit, that's for sure. You might even get some muscles from doing this. Okay, so then scoop that out. I've just got a little bowl to scoop it into, but you could scoop it right directly in the garbage or your food waste container or whatnot. And we just need to get those. You don't need to get all the fibriness out of that center part because it'll be a little bit fibery, but you got, and there you go. So what we're going to do with that now, seeds off of it, what we're going to do is just put it in a pan like this. So let me do the other half, and we're going to get that scooped out. Come on. They're a little tough. You think pumpkins are tough, and these guys really don't want to give it up. Okay, there we go. Oh, I just got some on the floor. Yeah, messy. I'm messy in my kitchen anyway. Okay, so there we go. And then there we have it. And then we have it in the pan. Okay, so now I've got it in the pan. As you can see, I have quite a bit of room around it. I could have put it in a smaller pan, but that's okay. As long as it's big enough to house them, you could have it in a square pan, all like that. It doesn't really matter. And I just greased the bottom of the pan ever so slightly, and we're going to put them in. So that way, if it's greased a little bit, then the peel of the squash won't stick to the bottom as it roasts. We're going to take a fork, and we're just going to give some pokes around, all around that. We're going to poke it just to let some air out of it as it's roasting. So like you would do with potatoes or any other like hard vegetables if you're roasting them. And then we're going to put it in the oven for at 350 or so. And it's going to take a good half an hour at least. So what we're going to do, put it in the oven to roast, and then we will check it and see when it's ready. Okay, so the squash has been in the oven for about a half an hour. I'm going to check it. I'm going to take it out. Oh, I got fogged glasses. Okay, here we go. Put it there. All right, let's do this. So I'm just going to angle my camera down so you can see the squash. Turn on the light so you can really see them. Okay, now we've adjusted to that. Now, how we check this is we're going to poke it with a fork. Okay. If it's tough like mine is, it's not ready. It needs to go back in. You can tell that's very, very tough. So what I'm going to do is kind of guesstimate how much longer that's going to take. And I think probably at least another 20 minutes. So I'm going to put it in for another 20 minutes and then we'll check it again. Okay, so it's been another 20 minutes and I'm just about to check the butternut squash that's roasting in the oven. So let me get that out. Try to do this. I'll stand back first so I don't get as much steam on my glasses. And we'll just move it over here. I will move my camera so you can see it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to turn this light on. Move the camera so you can see. Okay, so here it is. And that's looking much better. And okay, so I can put my fork into that. It's getting a little bit more. So I would say, yeah, see, I can put my fork right directly all the way into that one now. It's still a little bit, but because we're going to be using it and cooking it further down in the soup, I think that that is just about cooked enough in the oven. So we are going to let that cool off before we use it. So you need to let it cool off for at least 15 minutes. So we're going to do that. Then we'll get started making the soup. Okay, so it has been cooled now for about 15 minutes. Now, it's still warm, but I can't obviously hold it without burning myself. So that's what we're looking for. And we're going to scoop out the insides of that and put it inside a bowl. Now, you could start things for the soup on the stove and then scoop this, you know, to be put in there. But I like to do this first because there's nothing so freaky than trying to do things on the stove and you're still got this to do and you're getting your hands full of squash and everything, and it's very hard to do the two things at once. So let's do this first, then we'll get to putting the soup together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scoop it out, put it all in a bowl. So this is what I'm going to do now. Okay, come on. I've also got a little knife here if I need to cut. So you may have to take a knife and just cut down the center, which will help you. See, I can get that paring knife right through that. So I'm going to do that. So that's going to help a little bit. And what you can do is take this now and you just kind of whoop right straight down. Now this, like I say, it's still a little bit warm, but you shouldn't be burning myself with this on this now because I've had the 15 minutes. You could let it go longer. You could let this cool longer if you wanted. Make sure I don't have any peel in there. Nope. On that piece. So that's what we're going to do. And let me just cut to the chase. You'll see the end here. So there's my beginning. And then we'll cut to the end. So I've got a couple more pieces to go. I just cut them a little bit smaller. And actually I found with the paring knife, just to do this, go this way. You got to be really careful if you're using a knife because the squash gets really, really slippery. I mean, you know, it's very slick. So be very careful if you're using knives with this. I'm telling myself too. Okay, so I'm reminding myself because I have a tendency to cut myself quite often in the kitchen. So, see, I'm just like getting that innards out of there and putting it right in the bowl. Okay, and as much of that innards as I can get off of there, off of that peel. There we go. And we have it all done. So the next thing we're going to do is put the soup together. Okay, so on a fairly high heat, we're going to heat up either some coconut oil, which is what I have in my Dutch oven, or olive oil. So that's gotten pretty hot, and it's all melted, as you can see, the coconut oil. Like I said, you could use olive oil as well, or any kind of oil or that does not have dairy in it, obviously. So no butter, because otherwise, if you do that, then it's got, well, dairy. Okay, so now I'm going to put the onions in. So there's a fair good amount of onion in here. One large onion or two sort of medium small onions, okay? You can also use leeks as well if you want to use leeks, and that'll get a slightly lighter taste to it. But leeks are more expensive to buy. Although I love leeks, they are more expensive to buy, and their yield isn't very high. I mean, you get leeks and they're really, really long. They're like long, but it's only the end part that you can use, right? The sort of oniony looking end part. All the rest of it with the leaves that are dark greenish and everything, they're very tough, so you only use the insides and the end of a leaf. So really, it's not, I know, you're not getting a lot of bang for your buck on that. So I've got that on high. I'm just going to turn that slightly down. Okay, so it's still like a fairly high heat. And I'm just going to cook these for a few minutes, the onions for a few minutes to let them soften. So that's what we're doing now. And I get to that bowl that I have the onions in. Alrighty. I'm going to give them a stir. So you want to stir that frequently, right? You want those onions to be a little bit softened before you go on to putting anything else in the pan. And you should be using either a Dutch oven like mine, or the largest saucepan that you can find, the largest pot that you got, you know, in a way, if you don't have a Dutch oven, because it will make quite a bit, right? And you need that room in there to make sure things aren't coming out the top and everything. So we're going to let that go a little tiny bit more. I'm just playing with my temperature here. Okay, so to the onions, you're going to add some chopped up garlic. So we're going to throw that in. Okay. And some chopped up ginger root. Now, if you don't have fresh garlic or fresh ginger root at your house, that's fine. You could use dried. You can use dried garlic powder or garlic salt, and you can use the ground ginger. So we're going to put that in there, mix them up. They're going to cook for another minute or so. Okay, so we're going to do that. And just let them go. You don't want that. You got to be really careful with garlic that you don't burn it. And you want the flavor of the garlic to come out, but you don't want to cook it with it, you know, too much. Otherwise, yeah. So that's why you never put garlic in first. Okay, so you may see people putting garlic in a pan first and it's super hot, and you know, that's not quite it. I'm going to turn that down a little bit, sort of a medium. So I'm going to put that down to medium, and then we're just going to let this. So I can smell that garlic and that ginger in there now. So the next thing we're going to add is we're going to add some turmeric and some curry powder. Now, if you have to be nightshade free, be sure that your curry that you're using, the curry powder you're using, does not have nightshades. Because some curry powders, not all, but some of them actually use like a ground chilies. And if you do that, like a kind of roasted ground chilies, if you put them in then it's not going to be nightshade free. So go be very careful with that. But you can always make your own curry mixture as well. So I'm just going to slide that off the heat for a second. Because at this point, it's very yellowy inside. You may notice that. We're going to add chicken broth to the mix. Here. So we're adding some chicken broth. Actually, there's 3 cups. That's why I had 2 cups plus 1. So adding the chicken broth, I'm going to bring that heat right back up. Now that I got liquid in there, I can put that heat right up. So we got that in there. Alright, and then we're going to add some salt. So I got some Himalayan sea salt, about a teaspoon of that, but it's up to yourself. I like to have a teaspoon. If you were using garlic salt at that point that you were putting the garlic in, then you would, you know, put down your salt on this part where you're putting the salt in. So there we got that. We are going to put the squash in now. But before I do, yeah, we're going to put squash in now. So let's get that squash in there. I had to think about that for a second. Okay, here we go. We got all those squash pieces in there that we pulled out of that squash after we roasted it, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get that up to a boil, and we'll go from there. And while we're waiting for that to go up to the boil, so I've got to turn it up high again, we're also going to add one more thing before we do that, and that is coconut milk. Okay, so we got a can of coconut milk. I put it in this bowl because I had to whip it together because it was all separated. So here it's in there now. But you could use almond milk, you could use an oat milk if you wanted, rice milk, whatever non-dairy milk you like. Because some people don't like coconut, some people can't eat coconut. Coconut is a funny thing because even though it says coconut, it is different than any other nut. because although it can be classified as a nut, it is actually also can be classified as a seed and a fruit. So it actually is a funny plant that can be, the product of it would be the coconut itself, can be classified as either a nut, a seed, or a fruit. So it's a little bit different. As such, it's a bit different than any other nut that's out there. There are people that are allergic or sensitive to coconut, but not as many people as other nuts and things, other nuts and seeds. So it tends to be one that is not as allergen, is not as big of an allergen, or for as many people, I should say, because it's just different in its own regard. But that doesn't mean that there isn't anybody out there that can't eat coconut and that isn't sensitive to it or allergic to it, because there certainly is. So if that's you, then obviously don't use coconut milk. Use another non-dairy milk instead. So that's what it looks like now. We're just going to wait for it to come to the boil. Okay, so once you've got it starting to boil, mine is just starting to boil, we're going to turn down the heat, and we're going to cover it, and we're going to let it simmer on very low, like a low heat with the cover on, for about 15 to 20 minutes. About 15 minutes ought to do it, because we want the squash to be extremely soft inside. So that's what we're going to do next. Turning down my heat. Yes, it is boiling now. So I'm going to turn that down, right down to low, and put my cover on for 15 minutes. Okay, so I've had that simmering with the cover off for about 15 minutes, and I've taken it right off the heat, and just to show, like, you know that it's ready to do the next stage when literally they're very soft like that. I mean, your squash is super soft. It could melt in your mouth pretty much. So that's ready to go. And now what we're going to do is we need to puree it. So what I'm going to do is I like to suggest putting down some mats or something, so that, because this will get extremely messy, and some mats on your counter, or something like some tea towels, some of your kitchen towels or something like that you can put down. And that if you're using kitchen towels, that you can just put them in the laundry or whatever afterwards. Oh, need a ladle. Just give me 1 second here. I don't know why I didn't get a ladle out. Okay, here we go. So what we're going to do is take some of this soup and put it in the food processor or blender. If you've got a high-speed blender, that will work as well. And we're going to do about 3 scoops at a time, not much more than that. And the reason why you don't want to overload, here I'll do a tiny bit more, just a bit more liquid. And because you don't want to overload your blender or food processor, because if you do that, it will overflow. So you got to be really careful with this. So here's what we're going to do. And we're going to turn it on. I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit up. There we go. Turn it on and let it rip. So as you can see, you may have noticed that it comes up the side quite a bit, and you've got quite a bit of splash going on inside of there. And see, right on the cover, it's all covered in there. Okay, so, and then you take that out. Take that out, and as you can see, it's pretty liquidy here. So I'm going to put that in a fresh pot. So I'm going to just dump it into a fresh pot. Okay, fresh pan or pot there. Fairly large too, so like your second biggest pot that you got can go in there. Put that back on. Make sure to put your blade back in there if you're using a food processor. We're going to go again. I'm going to put that on the heat. I'm going to put the heat underneath of that other pot for low to low, so that it's keeping that warm while we're working on this. Although you don't have to, if you're not planning to eat anytime soon, you can, leave the heat off. But yes, and so we're going to put the cover back on and go a second time. Okay, so as you can see, that's round 2. Okay, never want to try to do this all at once, because it will be way too much for inside your blender or food processor. Believe you me, I've done that. I made that mistake once, and only once. You make that mistake once, you'll never make it again. I'll tell you that much for nothing here. And don't forget to put your blade back in to your food processor before you do your next round. And I've made that mistake before too. And, you know, here I have it all full. And food processor all full and ready. I thought ready to go, and then realized I don't have my blade back in there. So that was really silly. And so then I had to take it all back out again. And so not really great. Got a little bit more. So this is round 4. So let's go on that one too. Okay, there we go. Now, alternatively too, you can wait till this cools right down, your soup to cool right off if you wanted to before you blend it all, but you don't have to. You can work with it quite warm, no problem. Done it plenty of times with that. Most blenders and food processors, oh, my blade, will allow you to do that. Now, I think I can get the rest of it in here on the last go. So I'm going to just get the rest of this in there. Get the rest of my soup in the food processor. Okay. Got my blade in, yes. That would be embarrassing now that okay, so let's let her rip for the last go round. All right. Woo! Okay, it smells amazing. Oh my gosh, I wish that I could put the smell of these things that I'm cooking on video, because holy moly cannoli, it smells really nice. It's a very warm smell. You can smell that curry in there. Very warming soup. And yeah, so I'm done with the food processor. I'm just going to give you a sneak peek of what that soup looks like. I'm going to show you properly in just a minute, but I've got it on the heat, on low to heat it up. And that's how you do it. And I'll show you the end product in just a moment. And there you have it. There is a creamy, dairy-free, roasted butternut squash soup. And absolutely, I love putting it in a blue bowl because the golden color, it's just like golden. It's great to have this soup in the fall, in the winter. It's like a bowl of golden summer sunshine. It really, really is. And it's very warming, and I hope you enjoy it. And here I am again, so just adjusting my camera. Let's get that light right off my face here. But I'm glad that you came to visit here at the Dietary Restriction Kitchen today. I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye for now.